What's up, guys? Air That Trucker here, back with another video. And today it is a beautiful, warm 85-degree day down south, which would make it a perfect day to do something. What is that, you may be wondering? Putting on tire chains. And I'll tell you exactly why that is. Let's get into it. I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking, Erudite, what are you doing? Why are you messing around with truck snow tires when it's that hot outside? There's absolutely no snow. You don't need those right now. You're right. But think about it, guys. These are the optimal conditions to learn how to properly place snow tires on your truck. You don't want to wait until you're in the middle of winter, December, January, somewhere up north in Maryland or out west in Colorado or somewhere where you have a very dangerous situation, very adverse road conditions, and you are not sure of how to properly put those tire chains on. Take advantage of the good terrain and learn how to do something when the situation is in your favor. There's absolutely no pressure. I'm not legally obligated to put chains on. I don't need them. And you know, it's easy. And I'm gonna show you guys how to do it. Let's go. All right, as you guys can see, I already have one set of tire chains laid out on the ground here, and this is how you want to start it. When you take them out of the bag that they come in, they may come in a dual set like this particular pair. I have the other set, it's in the chain bag. We don't need all of them out for the purposes of this tutorial, but first thing you want to do is go ahead and lay them out entirely, and I'll step in front of the camera here. As you're laying the chains out, you want to make sure that you spread them out completely, making sure that the links are not bunched up like this. You want to have everything completely spread out as much as it'll go. No links bound over each other, and you want to just have the whole set of tire chains set out that way. It'll make it easier when you have to lay it out over the tire. Now, there's a couple ways that people like to do these. Some drivers like to put the chains in front of the truck tire and drive on top of the chains. I don't like to do it that way. Because think about it, if you were dealing with this in the wintertime, you're gonna have the trouble of, you know, the roads are probably gonna be nasty with slush or snow or ice. You don't wanna lie your chains down on top of that, potentially have them get lost in the snow, not be able to see how much of the chain you've driven over, and, you know, have to try to eyeball it in your side view mirror to know where the chain is in relation to where you have the tire rolled. It's much easier, in my opinion, to just pick the chains up from this position and drape them over the tire yourself. That way you know exactly where everything is. Now, the next thing that you want to make sure that you do before you pick up these chains to put them on the tire, you want to make sure that these prongs here, you can see them, you want to make sure that these prongs are pointed up all the way down the length of the chain. These cross members here that connect the chain horizontally to the other side, make sure that these prongs are always pointing up. And I'll explain why in the next step. Go all the way down the length, make sure they're all pointing up towards the sky. You're also going to want to make sure that these cams here, this metal piece that looks like an ear, is on the bottom side, pointing away from the wheel, and it's also extended with none of the links bound up against it. Now, I like to pick up a couple of those links in each hand and just drape it over the tire. Make sure that you're not catching up and binding any of the links against each other. If you're applying this, if you do, just straighten out. Alright, now, as you can see, I have the cams all pointed out. And the reason why you need to do this is because this is the part you're going to use to tighten the tire chains around the wheel. And some drivers like to drive forward. Some guys like to go backwards when they're trying to connect the chains. I prefer to go forward. That way you can always see where you're going. But just you have to judge it based off of where you exactly are parked on the road. You know, go whichever direction is going to be the safest, of course, for you. So since I'm going forward, what I do next, I take the excess chain. It should not be that much. That's in the front of the chain, and I tuck it underneath the tire as far as I can. So I'm going to need to drive over that portion so that I can connect the front end to the back end. And you want to make sure that you have an even amount of the chain on the front sidewall and the rear sidewall of the tire. Just take your eyes, look around it, and adjust it if you need to. Now I'm going to go ahead and crank the truck up, scoot forward a little bit. You guys will see what I'm talking about. Actually, before I move on to that part, something I did not mention. When I told you guys before to make sure that these prongs here are facing away from the tire, the reason for that is just the same way that you would hook your bungees facing away from your tarp so that you don't catch those bungees and put holes in your tarp. You want to have these prongs facing away from the tire, because otherwise, if you have them facing in towards the tire, once you tighten the chains up and you start driving, these prongs here will gouge into the sidewalls of your tire, and you will have to replace that tire or it'll go flat on you, and neither one of those things do you want to have to deal with. So make sure that all of the prongs all the way around the tire on both sides are facing away from the tire. Okay, I drove about a foot or two to get over top of the chain, and once you've done that, you just want to go ahead and check everything, make sure that none of the links got bound in a bunch, because you don't want to have that at any point in the process. So check the front sidewall and the rear just to make sure that that has not happened. And once you're sure that everything is good with that, then that's when you want to come and go ahead and connect the front and the rear of the chain. There's going to be these hooks on either side, and that's what you're going to connect up here. Now you're going to want to take special care to hook as high up as you can on the slack part of the chain here that dangles. Hook as high as you can, and you're also going to want to connect, well, first off, you're going to want to connect as much of the chain as possible. Like, don't have any of it hanging loose, because all the loose parts of the chain that are hanging are going to end up catching, and they'll do damage to the tire, or they'll damage the rim. You know, loose metal swinging around at a high speed is not good for any part of the truck here. Do the inside first, actually. There we go. All right, there we are. Had to fiddle around with that a little bit, but as you can see, it's really important. And you say you don't want to have any of this loose chain here just dangling off, spinning around, smacking against the tire or the rim. Make sure you've tightened it up as much as you can on both sides. Now, once we have everything connected and tightened up, then we want to go ahead and lock it in. And to do that, you use this metal key here, and it comes with each set of chains. You would take this flathead end and stick it into the cam, the center hole in the cam, which was that metal piece There's several of them that I showed you that looks like an ear, and you would put this into the center and you would twist each one of the cams to lock them in. I don't think it particularly matters which one you do first. I'm just gonna go ahead and do the bottom because I have some slack down here, so I want to tighten that end up first. And I just move around the wheel clockwise fashion and lock each one of these in. There we go. And I always check it for tightness, and that's really tight there. Going around the rings, I can't fit my fingers between the wheel and the chains. It's not drum tight against the wheel enough to, like, you know, constrict it, but it's hugged up against there really well. See, I can move it around a little bit, but my fingers can't go underneath this. Now the final step that you need to take to secure this is bungee hooking the outside of the tire chain. And there's a tool that you can use to do this. It's like basically a bungee, but it's like 5 different bungees all connected to a center point. And if you don't have that, if you don't have the fancy tools, you know, using standard bungees works just as well. It doesn't cost you any extra money. Now, I've seen people do it a few different ways as far as like their pattern. You know, I've seen people do it, you know, in the X formation, you know, crossing like this, and I've seen the star pattern. I haven't heard from anybody that one particular way is better than any other. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do the star pattern just because it's more points of contact when it comes to securements. I'm always a fan of doing more, not less. So make it like a plus. And then we'll go ahead and put one through the center of that. And once again, making sure the hooks are pointed outside, away from the sidewall of the tire, because you don't want to gouge any holes. And that is it. Now, with the tire chain setup complete, there are some things that you need to keep in mind once you have this set up here. Different states will have different requirements for where you need to put the chain tires. Some states you may only need to do the outer driveline tires. Some states you might need to do all 8. Some states you may need to do a couple of your trailer tires. You need to make sure that you're checking with your company, you know, your fleet manager or your safety guy or whoever it is that's responsible for providing you with that information. And make sure that you're chaining up in the correct areas that you need to, so you don't have any problems with DOT when you're out there on the roads. And also, when you have these chains on, for the particular set that I have, it's probably the same for most of the chains that are out there. They advise that you do not drive any faster than 30 miles an hour when you have these on. You know, for someone like me, I wouldn't drive any faster than like 20 or 25. Just because the maximum speed limit that they advise is 30 miles an hour does not mean that you necessarily need to go that fast. You know, drive according to the road conditions, according to your experience level, and according to your comfort level. You drive as slowly as you need to make sure that you keep this truck right side up and on the road where you want it to be, and keep yourself safe and everybody else around you. Ideally, if the roads are bad enough for you to even need to put chains on, you know, I personally would not be driving. You know, I would try to find the safest place to pull over and wait the storm out, wait till the road's clear. But I understand sometimes that's not always the option that you have. You know, maybe you're in an area and they tell you you have to go through it, or you have to get away from the particular area that you're in. I know that DOT shuts highways down if the roads are bad enough. All right, guys, sorry about that. Camera overheated on me and shut off. Ironically enough, making a video about cold weather snow chains, and it's hot enough for my camera to shut down. But wrapping this all up, guys, if these chain tires are just to get you going, to get you away from a particular area at a very slow safe pace. If you drive too fast, these chains might rip off of the tires. They'll come undone. And these chains spinning at even a slow rate of speed, 30 miles an hour, it can do a whole lot of damage to the underside of this trailer or to the wheels around it. So keep that in mind. Just drive slow enough to get yourself out of there, and then you want to take these back off once you get out of the dangerous area where they're needed. All right, guys, there you have it. Hopefully you learned how to put these chains on and this video finds you well, and you put this tutorial into practice before you actually need to use it. Just practice it when things are on your side, and you can do it in a relaxed fashion and not in a panicked fashion, you know, when you're dealing with snow, cold weather, cold fingertips, and ice and other dangerous things, guys. Until the next video, Air Trucker out.